Good morning. Welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. Yes, it's February 1st. I can't believe it. We're already in February. January has gone by, and it just means we can continue on with our devotions together. And today we're taking a look at Exodus chapter 8. So we've had the plague of the Nile, and now it's going to really start getting invasive, so to speak. And so the next plague that we have that came upon Pharaoh, of course, Moses again repeats his request to let the people go. And and he even warns Pharaoh, this is what's going to happen if you don't let us go. And what happens is that it says that Pharaoh has, and to show this, so Aaron actually is the one who does the hand spreading and with his rod and everything. Um, and so what happens is all these frogs come out of the Nile and infiltrate into people's homes and just everywhere. And but it says in this one, it's kind of interesting, but the magicians did the same by their own secret arts and were able to bring up frogs too. So there's this moment of recognizing like people are able to do some of the same stuff, but we'll see how that what changes here in just a little bit. So anyways, we have all these frogs coming out, and Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron and says, get rid of these frogs. And then what Moses does is kind of interesting. He goes, well, when do you want this done? Because we're gonna really start putting a test out there. And Pharaoh's like, I want them gone by tomorrow. And so Moses is like, all right, you'll see, they'll be gone by tomorrow. Like, that's going to show you the power and the work of God. And he does exactly that, goes ahead, and then all of the frogs start dying, and it says like the land stank. It said the land stank because of all these frogs dying. But here we have in verse 18. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. So, this is like we've been talking about previously about God hardening Pharaoh's heart, but then there's this point where it's no longer God doing it, it is Pharaoh's own choice now. Like, this is the point in which God goes, now it's time for you to change your heart. You've seen the miracles happen, you've seen all this, now it's okay, like you've learned your lesson, now it's okay to change your heart. But what happens is Pharaoh is not changing, having his own change of heart. He's continuing on in his hardness. But what I like out of this is that, there's that sense where I think it's sometimes we have had a hard heart for so long, it's hard to humble ourselves and let it break. And I mean, I get that. Our own resistance. Everybody, like, well, I've had this grudge for this long. Should get to keep on to it. But no, really, there is a point in which um God does want us to have softened hearts and that are acceptable, and ready to receive hope and encouragement. So we just see that today where that's happening. This is now Pharaoh's issue. He's not doing anything to help the cause anymore. So we quickly start moving through some of our plagues this morning. And the next we have the gnats that come in throughout the land. And this is where we find out that the magicians were not able to do this. So now the magicians are starting to say, and it says this in verse 19, this is the finger of God. So what we see is more and more people are starting to recognize the power of God because God is overcoming all of these things. They're no longer able to do the same thing. So they're like, yeah, this is beyond our abilities. And so that's kind of the interesting one part that comes out of the third plague. So then we move on by verse 20, we're into the fourth plague, and it's we have the flies that come out. But and what's unique and interesting about this plague is that God's able to separate the Israelite people from the Egyptian people. And so it says that, we're only going, these flies are only going to attack the Egyptians. It's not going to attack the Israelite people. So as there's this awareness that, like, there's a separation. God can actually tell who is who in this. And then we have this interesting little thing that happens with Pharaoh. Because Pharaoh's like, fine, just go ahead and worship here in town. Like, fine, worship your God. Just don't let this happen. And Moses and Aaron go, well, if we did that, you guys would be offended. Your people would be offended by our offerings. And so we need to leave, like go three days out so that we don't offend you. And we find that Pharaoh is kind of like, well, maybe you can go a little ways, but you can't go very far. Like you guys need to stay close by. So there's this sense of which Pharaoh's kind of like, what can I do to work with you? But Pharaoh does not want to lose control. He doesn't want to like he's really fighting against this. And so we do find that Pharaoh is like, okay, but Moses warns him, don't deal falsely with me. But we kind of know the outcome where that's going to go. So Moses removes the flies. But it says again, then after the flies were gone, but Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and would not let the people go. So we get to a point where he's starting to be willing to make deals, but he's not ready to really fulfill them. So you can kind of see he's being broken down. But again, he himself is the one hardening his heart now. This is the point in like the Jonah story where the Ninevites change their ways and Pharaoh's not doing that. And it's like, oh goodness, we're getting ourselves into something bigger than I thought I was going to have to get into. And eventually, the Israelites will be let go. But it goes to show how much we do have our own relationship with God and our own, where do we harden ourselves to not receive God in certain areas of our lives? And yes, I'm starting to prepare for Sunday's sermon, and it's like, be angry, but do not sin. Anger is okay. Having that moment of is fine, but it's the sinful things we do when we don't deal with it that becomes a problem. And that's what we see with Pharaoh happening here. Like, yeah, first he's angry, he's frustrated, but he's being given opportunities now to change, to be different, to be transformed, and he's not taking them. And so it becomes a sinful roller coaster for him, or snowball. And so I think it's important for us to take time, especially the closer we're getting to Lent and everything, to take time. Where have we hardened ourselves to receiving reconciliation, receiving love, receiving hope? Where do we need to let go of resentment and bitterness, maybe that we're holding on to, so that God can do something wonderful with us? So I hope you found a little bit of encouragement today from today's Hope, Faith, and Joy daily devotion. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.